Crimes! 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 On January 6, 2021, the President of the United States stood in front of his supporters and said, "We're gonna walk to the Capitol because you'll never take back your country with weakness.
You have to show strength, and you have to be strong."
Only 20 minutes later, Trump supporters began verbal confrontations with Capitol Police, and they only got worse after that. Now, felony convictions have already been handed down, and the House Select Committee on the January 6th attack has recommended that Donald Trump be prosecuted for his role that day. I'm America's attorney. I've been a lawyer for over 20 years, and I've helped over 20,000 clients. And I'm here today to tell you why Donald Trump is never going to serve jail time for the events that took place on January 6th. Now make sure that you stay till the end of the video, because I'm gonna tell you the secret legal truth about why he'll never see the inside of a cell. Now, as of December 21st, 2022, 964 people have been charged with crimes committed at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. That's almost 1,000 people. Now, most of these people have been charged with crimes that amount to trespassing, destroying property, and attacking Capitol police officers. Trump did not set foot on Capitol grounds, so he can't be charged with any of these crimes. So what did the House Select Committee recommend that he be charged with? Well, conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to make false statements, obstruction of an official proceeding, and oh yeah, inciting an insurrection. Now those are a lot of big words, so let's break down these crimes and find out what are we actually talking about. For instance, when we say conspiracy to defraud the U.S. Section 371 of Title 18 makes it illegal to enter into a criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States. Now, the Supreme Court has held that the statute criminalizes the use of deceptive practices in connection with any conspiracy for the purpose of impairing, obstructing, or defeating the lawful function of any department of government. And conspiring to obstruct a joint session of Congress from certifying the election certainly qualifies as seeking to obstruct a lawful function of the government. And the committee generally alleges that Trump and his co-conspirators followed a 7-point plan. Number 1, concerted effort to spread false information to the public about the election being stolen. 2, scheme to replace the acting attorney general who rejected the fraud claims. 3, pressure Vice President Pence to refuse or delay the certification of the electoral count. 4, pressure state election officials and legislatures to change the results. 5, instruct Republicans to create false electoral slates in multiple battleground states and give those 5 fake slates to Congress and the National Archives. And 6, summon a mob to the Capitol. And finally 7, ignore pleas for help and endorse the violence. Now those are staggering allegations. Now there are 2 main areas of deceit in connection with these allegations. Number 1 is that they said that he won the elections in certain states when there wasn't actually any proof that they were able to produce. And then number 2 is they brought forth fake electors, like people who weren't actually electors from the states, and said, these are the electors. Now, Trump didn't do that on his own. That's why it's charged as a conspiracy. Now, conspiracy to make false statements is a separate statute. That's 18 U.S.C. 1001. Trump conspiring with other people to submit slates of fake electors to Congress and the National Archives. Now, material for the purposes of Section 1001 is this. Evidence obtained by the committee suggests that those attempting to submit certain of the electoral votes regarded the need to provide that material to Vice President Pence as urgent. Now, the bigger question, what the special counsel will have to do here is make this determination. Did they submit these slates knowingly and willfully? Because that is necessary for a conviction under this criminal definition. Now, the challenge for the special prosecutor will be to gather enough evidence to prove that Trump and the co-conspirators acted knowingly or willfully, because that level of mens rea, that level of intent or knowledge, is what's necessary for a conviction under this statute. Now, this may not be as hard as it seems, because they can't rightly come into court and say that they believe that the electors that they created, that they kind of generated out of thin air, were the real ones. They were operating from a legal theory, which is not legal, but it is a legal theory, not a factual theory, that this is the correct slate of electors. Now, they're not saying these are the ones who were there in that state on that day, and this is the same as what we started with. They're saying the originals were not legitimate. That's a legal argument, not a factual argument. It will never go to a jury. And so that defense simply won't play at trial, which means it might be rather easy to get a conviction of this particular crime from the proposed indictment. But again, that's up to the special prosecutor. The third crime is obstruction of an official proceeding. We're talking about 18 USC 1512. You can see it here on the screen. Congress's joint session to count electoral votes on January 6th was an official proceeding under Section 1512. And the report relies on the decisions of many federal judges who have already reached this conclusion in cases involving the January 6th defendants. So you have to ask yourself, did Trump have the requisite intent? The committee wrote that Trump knew his actions would obstruct, influence, or impede the proceeding. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer, and you certainly don't have to be a genius to know that when you send a mob to interrupt a meeting, that you are intentionally interrupting the meeting. That's the whole point of it. Let's go back to the quote I told you at the beginning. He said, you're gonna have to be strong. You can't do this with weakness. He's talking about obstructing the proceeding. I mean, he's putting it right out there. Now, there's information that they have about his efforts to pressure Mike Pence that we as the general public don't have access to, or if we do have access to it, look, we're busy. We're not going to read the 10,000 page report. But I think we all have a general idea that he was telling Mike Pence, you have to hold up the proceeding. You can't let it go, right? And then he told his followers, Mike Pence was weak. Mike Pence couldn't stop what was happening. But perhaps the noose around Trump's neck, and yes, there's a double entendre there. I think Mike Pence has nice hair, okay? What I was saying is there's an email from his lawyer telling Pence to obstruct the proceeding. He's acting on behalf of Donald Trump. I just don't see how a talented prosecutor cannot convince 12 people of regular intelligence.
What was going on here?
Now, there's a lot more to the violation of Section 1512 than what I'm getting into in this video, but you guys are not trying to move in with me. If I read you the entire report, we'd both fall asleep. And after all, the point of today's video is to make it clear whether or not there's enough information available to the prosecutor to actually get a conviction of Donald Trump. I hit the highlights because, honestly, the highlights are enough for the conviction. Now, let's talk about the one that you're super excited about, inciting an insurrection. I'm talking about 18 USC 2383. Now, if you followed the news surrounding the second impeachments of Donald Trump, you know that he was acquitted in the Senate of this exact charge. But that was not a criminal prosecution. That was a congressional action, which means he can be tried again for the same crime, which is crazy because in our country we have something called double jeopardy, but it only attaches to judicial prosecutions, not ones that happen in the Senate. So that's tough news for the former president. Now, for people who are all over the political spectrum in this dispute, they may think that there are some facts. For the first charges that we've looked at, it's pretty clear that a lot of the facts are probably not in dispute, okay? But with this charge, there is a legal issue that is fascinating, which is whether under Donald Trump's First Amendment right, he has the ability to say the things that he said. Because as you know, the First Amendment is one of the landmark, hallmark, quintessential, bedrock, foundational, fundamental, I'm freaking out, rights of Americans. And so we are not going to just say, well, but he doesn't have it right now. Like, that's a big legal hurdle to overcome. Are there limits on the First Amendment? Of course there are. The classic example from law school, and I've talked about it on this channel, is that you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. You can if it's true. You're not allowed to say things that put other humans at risk for immediate bodily harm. Did his statements at the Capitol Mall put people, such as, I don't know, Capitol police officers, at a risk of immediate bodily harm? I mean, you've seen the video footage. Check this out right here. And you can see right there that people could get hurt, right? Now, one judge has already ruled that there is a plausible case for the conclusion that these may not be protected words by Donald Trump. That, in fact, it may have been incitement to a riot. That prior ruling is very, very troubling if you're on Team Trump, because the door is open to the special prosecutor. There is already a playbook, a path to move him towards an actual criminal prosecution. Now, it's not just a prosecution. The words need to be illegal, but you can see that there was actual violence that happened temporally, close in time. Now, you can see that there's actual violence, actual physical contact between people that's happening very temporally close to the words that Trump said. That is problematic for him. Now, if you are on Team Trump, or you just have this principle that you'd like to never see a former president, no matter what they do, get convicted of a crime, one comfort or solace that you might take is that no one has ever been prosecuted under this act. In fact, this law was passed as a precursor to the Emancipation Proclamation, which was 160 years ago. Well, there you have it. Those are the crimes that are in play based on the recommendation of the January 6th committee. And then you have this special prosecutor, like cue the creepy photo of him in a purple robe. Ah, that guy looks so serious. Anyways, he has some evidence that he's gonna be able to use to take on Trump, right? Now, the point of this video has never been to say, is he going to get charged with a crime? It would be politically foolish for so much headway to be made towards the prosecution without actually playing it out. And also, he has very public investigations against him in New York and Georgia. So, trouble looms for Trump. But what kind of trouble is it? I believe, after considering all of the options, that there is no way that Donald Trump will ever see the inside of a jail cell. I'm not saying that he didn't commit actual crimes, like criminal crimes. He did. I think he did. I think it's very obvious. But he's a political figure, which means that any prosecution of him for his crimes is not purely criminal. Because he's a political figure, the prosecution is actually a political act. Now, that doesn't make it legitimate or not legitimate, although you would see his supporters say, oh, that makes it not legitimate. But it actually doesn't. I mean, his actions either meet the definitions of crimes, and as I think the committee has made clear, they do, or they don't rise to the level of crimes, and this is just some sort of unfair witch hunt or hoax. Now, that's what he would tell you that it is. However, we're assuming for the purposes of this video that he's gonna get charged and that he's gonna get convicted. As you know, most cases don't go to trial, right? They mostly settle. And this case is no exception. One of the things that a prosecutor, whether in federal court or state court, can offer Donald Trump is a plea bargain that allows him to stay at Mar-a-Lago and never go to the inside of a jail, which is exactly what's gonna happen. And let's say you just hate Donald Trump and you're like, no, this is so unfair. He should have to go to jail. Look, as I said before, this is a political prosecution. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It means that it has political ramifications. Well, his enemies who want to see him prosecuted, they actually want the best political result. Now, they cannot let Donald Trump turn himself into a martyr by going to jail. I mean, if this guy has already incited one insurrection, who's to say that he wouldn't say, hey,
Come overrun my prison.
I mean, he got like 70 million votes. I would assume that he could find 3 or 4 million people to overrun his prison. What I'm saying is it's not politically expedient to put him in jail. Let him go to Mar-a-Lago, let him keep tweeting, let him do the stuff that he does. But if he can't run for office, then he's not the political threat that he used to be. And it serves a potential lesson to future politicians that if you break the laws, maybe you don't go to jail right away, but you're not gonna be able to stay in office. And this is a huge deal because what do we know about all politicians on both sides of the aisle? They wanna stay in office. They want power and they want to keep the power that they have and they want to get more power as time passes. And if you suffer a conviction like this, even if it's by a plea bargain and you can no longer run for office, well, that is not going to work well for his re-election campaign. You love Trump. You may be excited to find out that he's not going to go to jail, or maybe you're upset to find out that he's never going to be in office again, or you hate Trump and you're like, I really wish that guy could go to jail forever. But the reality is, compromises will be made. And in any compromise, everyone ends up a little bit unhappy and everybody gets a little bit of what they want. But check this out. Because Donald Trump used to be the president of the United States, he is surrounded by Secret Service officers 24 hours a day for the rest of his life. Now, if you want to put Donald Trump in jail, guess who has to go to jail with him? those guys, they're not going to jail. They didn't do anything wrong. It's way too impractical to send a former president to jail. It just wouldn't work, especially when you can achieve your political aims and not turn him into a martyr by keeping him at Mar-a-Lago and hitting, I'm gonna say, 12 over par. Well, that's my opinion. What do I know? I've only been a lawyer for 20 years. I wanna hear your pro se opinion. Drop down in the comments below and tell me what you think. Is Donald Trump going to jail? Should he go to jail? Should you be subscribing to my channel? Heck yeah, you should do all of that and more. If you like what you saw here, check out this video and stay tuned. I'll be back with videos twice a week. I'll see you real soon.